First up, we have Alexander Enthoven. He's a head business development of Kryha. Kryha is a consultancy company that helps to design and develop blockchain technology to advance business into the future. Clients are, for instance, Shell, BASF, and FedEx. You have an office in Amsterdam and also in Singapore.
Yeah.
Next up, Suzanne Vos. She works as an innovation coach at ING Labs, where she coaches individuals and teams to launch, accelerate, and scale their business. She's also located in Singapore. 2 other ING Labs are in Amsterdam and London. Then we have Pascal. Pascal Verloop from UNL. He's the co-founder and CPO. UNL is, I have to really cheat on this, a global smart addressing platform that gives anyone and anywhere a unique address for delivery services, digital identities, and smart city management.
Perfect.
Yes. Clients are, for instance, Here Technology, UPS, and the Singapore government. You have your headquarters in Singapore and an office in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So welcome all.
Thank you.
Sorry?
Thank you.
You're welcome. The purpose of today is to share your experiences in Singapore so that everybody at home or in the office or wherever you are can learn from it, and maybe from your mistakes, which would be a bit more juicy, but of course also things that went very well. So let's go to the first question. So that's mainly for Pascal and Alexander. Why did you make the move to Asia? Can I start with you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, for us, I mean, we were, once we just started the company, we already did a tour for Asia, and since addressing is a huge problem there, we always figured the market would be a good fit. So we also did some business there, but moving our headquarters was actually a last-minute decision. We were finalizing our seed investment round of 2 million, and then halfway through, the Singapore government wanted to join in.
Oh, perfect.
Which was for us super interesting, as there's the certificate of trust for doing business in the region. So we really wanted to pursue with that. But for them, one of the things that we had to do was also move headquarters and move a team into Singapore.
That's serious, right?
So that was a little bit earlier than we expected, and also in the midst of an investment round is not usually the best time to do these kind of things.
No.
But yeah, we pushed through, and in the end, it was a great decision. But yeah, super happy with it.
Cool. Alexander, what's your story to move to Asia?
Yeah, well, actually, since the inception of Kryha, we always wanted to move internationally. So we started off in Amsterdam. And a logical step was to go to the US first, because one of the co-founders, Tobias, he studied in Berkeley. And so he had a lot of connections there, and it was a logical step to go there. And then we joined a innovation mission from the Dutch government. And that also led our interest towards the Asia-Pacific market. And but of course, as a startup, you can't focus on 3 global hubs. So we actually decided to go to the US first, or we wanted to focus on the US first, but then we came across a challenge from Rolls-Royce. Not the one that makes the beautiful cars, but the Rolls-Royce that makes the plane engines. Sorry.
Yeah.
And we actually had to incorporate to participate in the challenge. So that sped up the process and made us incorporate in Singapore.
Okay.
And why Singapore? That's mainly because it's a huge tech hub. It's a very similar country to the Netherlands in some ways. It's a knowledge hub. So yeah, it was a logical step to go there.
Okay, thanks for sharing. So well, this session is how to be successful in Southeast Asia, but you guys are all in Singapore. There must be a coincidence, or there's a reason for it. Suzanne, ING Labs also started has an office in Singapore. Why do you think it's the reason that you guys are all starting in Singapore?
So from an ING perspective, our regional headquarters is in Singapore. So that was one thing. There's a lot of knowledge there in Singapore locally, and a lot of other big corporates also have their regional headquarters in Singapore. So it's really an easy starting point to make those early relationships, and this will really help as a platform to then expand to the rest of the region. So, and then also, of course, the ecosystem in terms of other startups, other incubators. There's a lot being learned. So it's you can tap into all these different channels to get extra knowledge, speak to other people. There's just a gold mine of knowledge in people's brains that you can really easily tap into. And again, Singapore is for a lot of startups and corporates the starting point to then explore beyond just Singapore.
Yeah. So I guess
Yeah.
you didn't have any choice. You had to go to Singapore. So do you have anything to add to Suzanne?
But I think even without the government, Singapore was also seen as sort of this hub where if you go there, you can sort of reach all the other places within the region. Like Alexander said, I think although there are a lot of differences, there are also a lot of similarities and sort of mutual respect. And we also do a lot of business in India and Vietnam and Indonesia. There's definitely a bit of a bigger difference and challenge to the business. I mean, it's still going well, but we notice with Singapore, there's a more natural fit.
Yeah.
And starting from there, also the countries around Singapore, they trust Singapore. If you're there, it has a good degree of trust, and I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. Alexander, did you guys ever consider another country to incorporate, or this was
besides Singapore in the Asia Pacific region? You mean? We have set our eyes on Hong Kong as well, or at least I went to Hong Kong to scout if it would be interesting to incorporate there as well. But the market is mainly financially focused, and for what we do and the target audience that we wanted to target, it wasn't really interesting for us. No.
Okay, thanks. And then, so then you guys are all in Singapore. You mentioned there's a lot of similarities, but do you also had to make any adjustments to your product, to your marketing, anything else that comes to mind? Maybe Alexander wants to start.
Yeah, sure. So we were a little, I would say, overconfident going into the Asia Pacific market. We had a validated business model here in Europe and in the US with big clients, basically validating the business model. And then, so we participated again in the Rolls-Royce challenge. We pitched a very nice presentation. I think it was one of the best presentations that we gave so far in my life, actually. And then we became second, and the company that won was a product company, not a service company, as we are. And we always had in the back of our minds that we wanted to transition into building software products, but not just yet. Just first build our brand upon services, and then later on make those products. And then it made us realize that the market there is so much more result driven than process driven, and pitching a nice process doesn't always help. And that actually made us speed up the process and made us to transition into a product service company even faster. So it definitely changed our business model.
Okay. Suzanne, do you have anything to add? What you need to take into account? What's different in Asia or Singapore specifically?
Yeah, I think just as you described, you have to go through your business model again, and you do your validation. You usually start with desirability, really understanding, do people want this in the first place? What is the problem that I'm trying to solve here? And how can I add value there? Just looking at that through a different cultural lens or through a different landscape often already shows, hey, there's differences between what I already have learned in the past, what works, for example, in the Netherlands versus what is actually working abroad. So that's the first element. And then the second element really is around feasibility, also making sure that you can actually build the tech, that the tech is also accepted there. So some challenges that I've seen, for example, have been around data sharing between Europe and Singapore. So there's a lot of different regulations there you need to be really aware of. So this can also then trigger a change in how you do your business, how you set up your business model, and how you're using your data. Do you need to pivot? Do you need to try something else? And then, of course, your viability. Where are you going to generate your income sources from? The cost structures are usually different as well.
How is it usually different? Is it like lower pricing, or they go?
It really depends on what kind of product or what kind of startup you're in, what kind of team you're working with, and what kind of skills you need. So in general, for example, data scientists, if you want to hire those in Singapore, they're often more expensive as a resource than compared to Europe now.
Yeah.
So that's something to really then take into account. Do you want to have that locally in Singapore, or do you want to look around in the region if you can find more talent? Because the talent is there and it's top notch. But yeah, it does impact, of course, your overall business model.
Yeah.
So my key tip here would be really listen first before you, with all your enthusiasm, just start building something and really learn, build fast, put on that agile hat to develop fast, learn fast, and then adapt.
Yeah, thanks. And I think you also had to make some changes in your marketing perspective.
But I mean, it's we have our office here in Amsterdam, and we can sort of assume how to do business in Singapore and India, but it's such a different world that for us it was definitely important to get also local people on board that understand the culture, understand the language, the use of language, and understand the problems that are there. And I think that was key for us to onboard as soon as possible, because we only know so much. We can only read what's happening, right? So having a local team there, I think, is key. And in Singapore, but definitely also the other countries within the region, they usually also accept business faster when there are also local people involved. They want to usually stimulate their own economy as well. So having local people there working on a project definitely helped for us.
I think also because you did a challenge. Okay, you didn't want, sorry, but I think having like some big ass investors or like a government that really adds to the credibility of your company. Like it's like a stamp of approval or something, isn't it? Is that something you should strive for if you want to set up in Asia, that you get like some good backing behind you?
I don't know if I don't want to motivate everyone to get investors on board as soon as possible, but having good partners, I think there's a lot of network and trust and this form of loyalty is super important. So usually most of our clients, most of the people that we work with are connected through others. And that's how most of our business is going so far. And we definitely see that there's more appreciation for having a good circle around you than it would be here in the Netherlands.
Yeah. So loyalty,
definitely.
relationships,
Well, have your partners,
that's really
relationships,
key to
invest in those things. Those will be most important when you're there.
Yeah, relationships.
Yeah, and having a big name behind what you're doing also shows that you have a certain degree of validation that what it is that you are offering makes sense, because there's at least one other person that put their money behind this. And we also see that within ING, so we incubate startups as well. If they go out into the market, one of the first questions usually is, does ING use this too? And if then the startup can confirm, yes, we tested this first within ING and people are using it there, that really is a vote of trust. And it's like, okay, so if a big financial institution thinks it is good enough, then we are happy to take a look as well and see what we can do together. So it really helps with that proof of, we validated this. Look, you can trust us. We're legit.
Yeah. Do you agree, Alexander?
Yeah, definitely. And I see it as a book of stamps and not really one stamp that you need of approval. Like a big company backing your
bring
solution.
it under your arm.
No, but I guess the having a company backing it, but also the government backing it. Getting subsidies, getting an investment from a local VC, for example. Those are all things that could help you in scaling your business. But you have to realize that you have to start from square zero or square one. And those stems are really important.
Okay, cool. And I think we touched up on it already a little bit. Hiring people. You mentioned it's really important. Suzanne, can you share some insights in how the mindset might be different, or what is the same? What should they look out for?
So there's a lot of talent out there. And for me, there's two key things that you need to be aware of when hiring. The first one, most important one to me, is really mindset. Because if you are in a startup space or in the innovation space, you really need to take on a different way of working. By default, most people are really trained to be in execution mode rather than exploration mode. And in execution mode, you really go step by step and you do what a senior manager tells you to do. But if you need to put on your exploration hat, and in a startup scene, that's basically the only hat you're wearing most of the time, you really need someone who is like, okay, I'm okay with dealing with uncertainty. I'm okay with exploring. I'm okay with taking it one day at a time and validating, looking for evidence rather than just doing something and then at the end realizing, oh, this is not something that I need in the first place. So that is something to really watch out for.
Is that losing face? Is that something really that you encountered? Maybe also from a sales perspective, but also from a hiring perspective, that it's really an important thing to take into account in Asia?
Maybe not necessarily the losing face as such, but they really want to understand what they're going to get themselves into, which I think is a healthy problem. It's also showing that people are really
they don't
interested.
take the deep dive.
And I think that's also connected then with the skills. What kind of skills do you then actually need aside from the exploration mindset? Also, what kind of skills do you need at that moment in time for your team, for your project? Are you looking for someone who has a great sales network, or are you looking for someone who's just this badass tech lead? What are you looking for at that moment in time? Then really make sure that the profile really matches your need at that time. And also if you convey that to your participants, to your participants. I was looking at you guys. If you also communicate it to the potential candidates, they will feel, okay, this is how I can fit in and how I can contribute more tangibly. That's my experience, at least.
No, I agree. I think, well, especially in a startup, you don't have sort of the management layer, right? So you want a team that's proactive by yourself.
Yeah.
They don't care about hierarchy so much. And also with the time difference, there are always a few hours a day when the officers can't communicate with each other. So you need people that really, have their own drive and aren't scared of taking risk by themselves without seeking approval first.
Yeah.
I guess that's the same in Netherlands, but for definitely in Singapore, we thought that was an even more important attribute of someone's personality.
Yeah. Okay. So considering the time, I want to go to the tips and tricks. I know you have a few, Alexander. Can you share something?
So again, don't think that you know everything coming from Europe, for example, and be overconfident about your business model. Start from square one again. Try to get all those stamps in your booklet, and it's about building a relationship, I think. So we started off going to meetups again, even though, like back in the days here when we started off in Amsterdam, we went to every meetup about blockchain technology and just try and find the right connections, trying to see what it's all about, what companies are thinking about. And we basically did the same over there, just talking to a lot of people, validating your business model and see whether there's a fit or whether you actually have to pivot your business model. And follow that gut feeling. Sometimes it hurts to kill your darlings, but sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to.
And you mentioned don't try to do everything yourself. So what are the best places to seek help?
Yeah, I would say seek help from the embassy. So you're going to hear from Gabi van der Helft. Really reach out to her. And corporate secretary services really helped us. We didn't know anything about the legal system there, how you set up your tax structure, your company, like as you do here in the Netherlands. So that really helped us. And finding a local partner, either really local, or someone who has local knowledge, for example, who has lived there for quite a while. So we have an advisor there on the ground who knows the ecosystem, who has the connections in the companies that we wanted to work with. And that really helps. But don't go for the first and the best person that you find. Really try to think of what is a strategic person to work with, or what is a strategic company to work with, and then go for it. Just do it. That's also one big tip.
Do it. Okay. Pascal, do you have anything to add?
Tips
and tricks?
It's all good advice. I definitely agree with Alexander saying. I think also to add to that, know when the time is right for your company, right? So first you can of course go for 1 or 2 months to validate and do all the research. But even when you validate it, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take resources. It's going to take adjusting the products. So your company needs to be ready. I mean, you're definitely going to notice that the attention of the team is sort of being split around, and it has effect on how your company has been operating if it's just one hub. So be sure that you're ready. And of course, our strategy wasn't perfect. We just went and we say, well, we'll see what happens. But yeah, if I do it again, then definitely some better preparation would be a good step.
Maybe to add to that, there's like especially in Singapore, there is sort of, I would say, the attention cycles of the government. So you have every once in a while there is a topic that they focus on: sustainability, circularity, fintech, for example. And if your timing is right, it could really help you finding the right subsidies, for example, and they could really help.
Yeah, because I think the Singapore government is quite proactive and business minded, so they are really can be a lot of cash available to start a startup.
They're actually they're promoting hiring locals and paying for 80% of the salaries and everything. So there's a lot of opportunities, but you got to learn and move it.
Okay, thank you so much. I think it's the time for the poll. I'm just looking at because the first poll question was: Are you already active in Southeast Asia? It's interesting to see that. It's about half. So half says, yes, I have an office and clients there already. And the other half is not there yet, but wants to. So I would say stay tuned. All the guys who are already there to have some expert tips. And also if you're not there yet, there's loads of, sorry, I'm looking at the organization. Loads of other information to find in this session. I don't have a second poll question here. I don't know. People are waving, and okay. We go to the Q&A part. So you guys all had some questions posted already. So the first question is from Gaurav Gandhi. He asks, what are the strategic advantages for Singapore when compared to Europe, for instance, Berlin or Silicon Valley? Do you have any, why Singapore over Europe or the US? Maybe it depends also a little bit on your product or your background.
From that perspective. So of course, we started off in Europe, in Amsterdam. For us, we didn't want to make the move to Berlin, for example. Berlin is a big blockchain hub, so it might make sense to move there as well. But because we're relatively close to Berlin, it didn't make that much of sense. And I haven't actually looked at the perspective of comparing that one to the Europe market or to the
So what I really noticed is that the ecosystem in Europe and in Silicon Valley, for example, is a lot more mature already. And in Singapore and Southeast Asia, there's so much more of a journey to go on. There is a lot that in terms of innovation, in terms of the startup ecosystem, that still really needs to be institutionalized, which also means you have a lot more wiggle room and you can really be part of this still growing and incubating group, essentially. So this also means that the pace of learning, from my point of view, is a lot higher, because the whole ecosystem is still learning and trying to figure out what works. So that to me makes it very exciting, because you can still introduce concepts that are completely new in this environment, whereas in Europe and in Silicon Valley, the wheel has already been reinvented dozens of times, and there's still so much more to be explored.
Okay, we have some other questions also. Why to choose Singapore? Clemens is asking, our first Asian customer is in Taipei, but we still want to have our Asian office in Singapore. Does that make sense to you?
Well, I think so. I mean, for us, actually, our first investor was also based in Taipei. SOSV, they're a big international investor, but we started a program up there. And they actually advised us to, although we did some projects there, to make a whole tour for the rest of Asia, and then pick a place that matches your company best. And I think for us, still Singapore was a very good place to have as a center hub. I mean, I think you should still can have a local office in Taipei or anywhere else. But as a first step, Singapore still makes sense for us.
I guess it also depends on the type of business that you have. If it really requires you to have people on the ground over there, then it makes sense to move to Taipei. But if it's also possible to work remotely, then I definitely advise on going to Singapore.
You guys are all Singapore fans, I
Yeah,
can hear.
sorry for that.
I'm a bit biased.
Yeah. Well, actually, Harm had the same question, why Singapore as of not Kuala Lumpur, but I think the answer would be more or less the same. So thanks, Harm, but I hope your question is answered. Then Stella asks, how important is it for startups to build a relationship with local NGOs?
Depends on what your business focuses on. Like, how important is it to build relationships locally? It's key to be successful and to survive. NGOs really depends on what you want to focus on and who you want to reach, and what is your goal of focusing on NGOs specifically.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
us, it was really helpful to talk to NGOs and associations because those are not the typical clients of ours. So we work with big corporates, but sometimes the doors of big corporates are hard to open. And if you're trying to figure out whether a certain solution or use case for a market actually works, those are the organizations that are willing to talk to you and are willing to validate your solution. So depending on the business model, again, I would say it is really helpful to talk to those organizations and build those relationships.
Okay. Then Vincent is wondering how you get your first 10 customers in Singapore or before setting up office. So how did you guys do it? Learn from the experts, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely about reaching out. Also, like Gabi is an important player for us. We really reached out to the investors in the network that we have. This is our solution. We wanted to validate a really small part of the product, but a key part, and we wanted to make it small and just send it through and see, hey, is this something you can work with? Is this something you want to do a proof of concept with? And really validate it. Maybe not the whole proposition, but take small parts so people can understand. And people, you don't have to share the whole vision, right? So make it concrete, and then ask around and go there for 1 or 2 months, and be super active, like Alexander said, and learning about the community and everyone involved.
So how do you understand which players are there in the market?
For us it was again we had our connections through the embassy, we had through our investors and our clients. Some of our clients had also had offices in Singapore, and through them they really helped us out with scoping the market. Who are the players? Who would fit your product well? Who can we introduce? So really working with the partners that you have here and reaching out to meet on there.
Do you have anything to add, Alexander?
Yeah, I think getting 10 clients out of Singapore without being there and without being incorporated in Singapore can be really hard, because sometimes the first thing that they look at is if you actually have a business in Singapore.
That's another stamp in your book.
Yeah, another stamp. They look at your business card and see if you have a Singaporean number. So I would say it's way easier to get your first 10 customers when you actually incorporate it there, and it's not that expensive. So
just incorporate and fly back and forth, maybe.
That's what we did basically. That's what we did basically before having our advisor there. So it really helped us.
Hold on, because I think there was another question, which is also because I was mentioning flying back and forth. Now with the COVID, it's of course not so easy. And Rick is asking, what time frame would you recommend for approaching the Singapore market in terms of government restrictions and business acceptance relating to COVID? That is.
It's hard to predict. One of my colleagues is in quarantine right now in a hotel for a few weeks. So now is definitely not the best time.
No.
But it's hard to predict. I mean, at the beginning of the year, we expected to build a team of 10, 15 people there this year, but it was all postponed. And, for now, you can do a lot online, but if you aren't there yet, and it's really important, like Alexander, to be there and get to know the people. It's hard to say, but I wouldn't go this month for sure.
No, because you mentioned before when we were sitting over there having coffee that you guys now do a lot online, but you actually saying, but you first need to show your face.
It definitely
because
helps
that's the
if you already
relationship
have
we were
some form
talking.
of relationship. Otherwise, it will take a lot more convincing to actually get on board. So if you don't have a network yet, then now is a very difficult time.
You do see a bit of a shift that more and more people are open for a virtual coffee to get introduced, but then still they would really like to see your face in real life
Yeah.
as soon as possible. So you can already start doing your homework essentially. LinkedIn is just a great channel to already start reaching out to people. Start with cultivating those relationships, and then when things open up a bit more,
Jump in the plane and go.
jump on the plane and go.
Yeah.
And maybe you have to wear a tracker. Maybe you have to go on hotel for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can start doing your homework now.
Okay. Then we have a question again from Vincent, who's very active. Good to hear. In a business-to-business setting, in countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, we are afraid our prices will be too high. Can you say anything about the business-to-business prices levels in non-Singapore countries? Did you experience that pricing is an issue, or
Really depends what it is.
because Singapore, yeah, I mean Singapore, it's actually only 6 million people, but
Mhm.
yeah, you want also the surrounding countries.
Mhm.
Where
Can we
the
ask
economy is
Vincent
maybe
what are you selling?
What is your business model, Vincent?
we don't know.
Maybe he's replying anytime soon. I don't know.
It really depends. So the lab focuses on B2B only in Singapore, London, and Amsterdam. And the initiatives the startups we work with really do business across Asia, Southeast Asia, North Asia as well. And the price really depends on what is already on the market. And yes, there are differences everywhere, but
Yeah.
it really depends on, again, what is already in the environment there, what is already being sold,
Mhm.
how unique is your proposition.
I think we definitely see a difference in pricing, but for us, our model is already volume based. So it's pricing is very low. We just try to attract as many people as possible on the platform. So in that essence, those countries actually match our business model and what we want to do. So for us, it's not necessarily a problem, but there's definitely a difference. Also, we're doing business in other parts of the world. There's definitely something you have to be aware of, and also how do you combine everything that they're not paying everything 10 times as much in different parts as they are there. So.
Okay. Then I think the Q&A timing-wise is done. We have one more poll question. The question was, what's your biggest challenge for expansion to Southeast Asia? I can see that most people have the biggest challenge with finding clients. So, yeah, as you heard, you need to hang in there a little bit. So that's it for now.